Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar for October. Hope everyone's doing well and staying safe, and hopefully you can see us and hear us. And grateful that everybody could be with us this morning. So we have quite a few people that are going to be on our Zoom call today. We have some more that should be popping in. We're waiting to see if more would pop in here, but we're going to get started with the presentation. As always, if there's questions or things as we're going through this, you can certainly type those questions into your little chat thing on your Zoom, and we'll go through those at the end. Certainly, if you want to come in for a one-on-one and sit down and visit with us, always remember there's never a fee for consultation. So happy to sit with you on a one-on-one if you want to do that. We'd be happy to do that. Just call our office and let us know if you want to do that. At the end of the presentation, we're going to do another drawing for a gift basket like we do every single month. So Elisa will remind me to do that if I forget. So today we thought it'd be a good idea to go through your binder that looks like something like this, that all of you have. Some of you have one that is not our new law firm information. Some of you have the Morris Hall binder. It's a burgundy color. But the layout of the binder that you have, whether it's Morris Hall binder or it's this one, is going to be the same, very similar. So don't hyperventilate if you're saying, wait, I don't have that binder. Mine's burgundy and it's the Morris Hall one. Do I need to come in and get a new binder? At some point, when you come in for a review or to ask questions or whatnot, we can swap your binder out and put it in this new, really cool gray one instead of the burgundy one. But it's not going to affect, being able to go through this with you today. This binder is similar to the one that you have if you have the old Morris Hall one. And it is big, it's bulky, there's a lot in here. So I think it's important that you understand what's in it, how it works, what the documents do, the contents of the binder. And so I'm just going to go through that with everybody today. And then once again, if there's questions as we're going through that, feel free to type those questions in, and then we'll address those. So to start with, your binder has all of your original estate planning documents in it. So I say that because oftentimes clients will come in and they'll say, well, Dave, you never gave me the originals. I just have a copy of it, or I never even got a binder or something like that. And I understand time goes by and we kind of forget where we maybe put the binder or whatnot, but you have the one and only set of original documents in your binder. So Morris Hall never kept original documents. I don't keep original documents. I've never kept original documents. We have a digital copy of everything that's inside your binder. So if you had your documents done at Morris Hall, looks like there's another person that needs in. If you'd done your documents at Morris Hall, when you transferred your file over to me, Morris Hall sent me your digital copy of your document. So I have a digital copy of your document, but I don't have a storage facility with 50,000 binders sitting in it. We don't keep originals. We just have a digital copy. I say that because it's very important that you keep your original documents in a safe place. A fireproof safe in your home is the best place to keep your original signed documents. Why not a safety deposit box? Why do I recommend a fireproof safe at home as opposed to a safety deposit box? A safety deposit box can be hard to gain access to or get into after you die. We typically need a death certificate to gain access to the safety deposit box. And it's going to take at least 3 to 4 weeks to get a death certificate from the county. And so for about a month, if your binder is in a safety deposit box, we don't have access to the documents. And you need the original documents in order to administer things. A lot of times clients will say, well, why do I need the original documents? Why can't my kids just call you, Dave, and get the digital copy and work off of the digital copy? This is why. You can revoke your estate planning documents. You can revoke a trust. You can revoke a will by destroying them, getting rid of them, shredding them, burning them, throwing them in the garbage. So one way of revoking your estate planning documents is to get rid of them. And that's what the law says. The law says if we can't find your document, then it's assumed that you destroyed them with the intent to revoke them. And so if all we have is a copy, then the argument is you destroyed the original because we can't find it with the intent of revoking the documents you created. And so we can't rely on the copy because of that reason. So you always have to have the original. You got to keep it, best place to keep it, fireproof, safe in the home, and then let your loved ones, whoever that is, whoever's going to be in charge of your estate, whether that's a fiduciary, your kids, your grandma, your grandpa, your uncle, your aunt, your niece, your nephew, whoever is going to be in charge of your estate, they need to know where to find the binder. It doesn't do us any good to create this amazing binder and for you to go dig a hole in the backyard and hide it. Right. So the trustee, whoever that's going to be, needs to know where to find the book after you've put it wherever you're going to put it. So number one, your binder has all your original documents. Always has, always will. Number two, keep it in a fireproof safe. Number three, make sure your loved ones know where to find the binder when you pass away. First top three things. Now, with that said, some of you, if you created your document with Morris Hall many moons ago, when I say many moons ago, I'm talking at least 10 to 15 years. So if you have not updated your document in the last 10 to 15 years, we may have, Morris Hall, my old law firm, may have given you a binder with copies of your document and then a clear plastic sleeve with your original signed documents. So they gave you two sets of documents, a binder with your copies, no signatures in it, and a clear plastic sleeve with all of your signed originals in it. So if you have documents like that with the binder plus a clear plastic sleeve, that means your stuff has not been updated for quite a while. And probably a good idea to come in so we can look at stuff, talk about law changes and updates and improvements. At the same time, then we can consolidate everything, make sure all of your originals are in one binder, and it's nice and easy and clean and organized. So, but most of you that are on the Zoom call, I think I recognize most of you. Some of you have these cryptic Zoom names here, so I don't identify all of you, but most of you I recognize, and I think we've updated stuff recently. So but that's start with, okay? So hopefully you can see the binder here on the table. What I'm going to do, maybe move it back a little bit, but I'm just going to go through your binder. Once again, if you have a Morris Hall Burgundy one, it's basically the same setup. When I transitioned over to my new firm, I kept the layout of the binder the same to keep everything as consistent as possible with my old law firm, Morris Hall. So inside the binder, when you open up your binder, you are going to see a bunch of different tabs in your book, okay? And behind each of the tabs inside your binder, you are going to find one of two different things. You're either going to find a legal document that is your trust, your will, your powers of attorney, your healthcare documents, stuff like that, that we never, ever write on or mark on. Or you're going to find a piece of homework inside the binder that I do want you to write on, I do want you to get filled out, I do want you to get done. So how do you differentiate between what you can write on and what you should never write on? When I signed your documents with you, if I was the attorney that signed your documents with you, and sometimes that didn't happen when I was at Morris Hall. Sometimes, you met with me initially, I went through everything, you retained our services, but then you signed with the paralegal, or maybe you signed with another attorney because I wasn't available that day or something. But if you signed your documents with me, I can guarantee you I put little sticky notes at the tops of certain pages of your binder, okay? Those sticky notes indicate to you that you should write on those pages. Those are pages that are homework pages. Those are pages you should write on, get filled out, get done. Everything else without the sticky note, that is a legal document. We never write on it. We never mark on it. Don't do that. So the question is, some clients say, well, Dave, why can't I mark on the legal document? Why can't I take my pencil or my pen if I don't like my son Johnny anymore and I want to remove him from my trust? Why can't I just take my magic marker and scribble out his name? Well, because when you start marking on your legal documents, it opens the document up for interpretation, meaning who did that? Did you mark on it? Did your daughter Susie get a hold of your document? She said, I don't like Johnny, I'm gonna cross his name out. Did you have capacity when you did that? Were you under duress when you did that? So we never, ever, ever mark on our legal documents. If we want to make changes or alterations to our document, then we come in, sit down, review, talk about it, go through the legal process of making a change or alteration to the legal document. The pages in your binder that I put the little sticky notes at the tops of, that's homework, that's stuff that you should write on and get filled out and get done. So we're going to go through this today. Hopefully it starts to resonate, ring some bells. Oh, I remember Dave told me to do this and do that, not do that, do this, but it's just a good review for you. And then as always, we're recording the Zoom call, I think, right, Lisa? So we're going to post this like we always do onto our website and onto our YouTube channel. And so you can always go back in and say, oh, I forgot what he said about that, and watch it again as many times as your heart desires. So let's get started with your binder. So inside the binder, the first tab that you're going to see inside your book is your table of contents tab. Okay. So if you flip behind the table of contents tab, you're going to have a brief summary as to what's found behind every single tab inside your binder. So if you're ever wondering, well, what's behind the trust information tab? Well, it tells you what's found behind the trust information tab. Or what's found behind the revocable living trust tab? Well, surprise, that's where your trust is kept. So it's pretty self-explanatory, nothing too crazy or convoluted there. Just let you know and identify what's found behind every tab inside your book. Your next tab is your trust information tab. I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but that is your trust information tab. This is probably the most useful tab inside your entire binder. And if more clients would utilize the trust information tab, it would probably save me about 15 to 20 emails or phone calls a month. Maybe not that many, but clients calling or emailing saying, Dave, I forgot what's the name of my trust, what's the date of my trust, who are the trustees of my trust, who's my healthcare agent, my financial power of attorney, I forget who we nominated for this. Those things should be found behind your trust information tab. Okay. Now in the new binder, we do a better job. When I say new binder, when I transitioned over to my new law firm a year ago, and we started updating the document and doing things a little bit different, I assembled more concise, summarized information behind the trust information tab than what I used to do at Morris Hall. So those of you that have updated your document in the last year with me, you're going to have more information behind the trust information tab than those that have not updated their document and still have the Morris Hall document. Not that your document is invalid if you haven't updated. It's just that there's more of a summary for you that I put behind the trust information tab for those that have updated it recently. So, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So the first page you're going to come to is this trust information page. Looks like this, okay? And it's got these 6 reminders that are in here for you. Whether it's the Morris Hall document or my document, it's the same. You have this. And these 6 reminders are good to just periodically review, look at. Number 1 is it says you can always remove assets from your trust, and you can always put new assets into your trust at any time. So always remember, if I'm going to sell a house, sell a car, open a bank account, close a bank account down, we don't have anything to do with that. That you're the trustee of your trust. You're in charge of buying, selling, trading, liquidating, and you can do that on your own. You don't have to call me. We don't amend your trust every single time you acquire a new asset or get rid of an asset. Just remember, the main thing to remember is anytime we acquire a new asset, we always, always, always title the asset in the name of the trust. That's the key to the trust working. Number 2 reminder in here is it's going to say, hey, all of your taxes are staying the exact same. There's no change in your taxes. Your income taxes, capital gains taxes, excise taxes, all of property taxes, all of those stay the exact same. Sometimes we get phone calls from clients saying, hey, Dave, my CPA is asking me what the tax ID number is for my trust. Your tax ID number for your trust is your social security number. There's no separate, new, different tax ID number for your trust. It is taxed as you. Number 3 is the one most people forget to do, which is to always put the term trustee after your name if you're acting on behalf of the asset in the trust. So if I sell my house and my house is owned by my trust, then I would sell the house, I would sign my name on the deed, and then I would write trustee after my name because I'm selling the home as the trustee of my trust. So just write trustee after your name if the asset's in the trust and you're acting on behalf of the asset. That's the reminder number 3. Reminders 4, 5, and 6 on here basically just say what I've already said. Don't ever write, mark on the legal documents, only write on the pages that I put the little sticky notes at the tops of your binders for. And then if you ever want to make a change or an alteration, just come in and see us and we'll walk you through how we make those changes. This page is where it's a little bit different. These next couple pages where it's going to be a little bit different from the Morris Hall document to the new document. Don't worry if you're looking here, you're saying, I can't believe Dave is showing a client's binder to all of us. And we can see this is the Kennedy Living Trust. Well, this is John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline B. Kennedy. So I'm not too worried if you guys all see my mock trust that we did. So no attorney-client violations being committed here by going through this. So if you look at this page here, it summarizes the key information regarding your trust. Number 1, it lets us know the name of your trust. It lets us know the date the trust was established. It lets us know the date of the last change to your trust, and it lets us know who your trustees of your trust are. So it's a good summary. It also lets us know how you should be signing on behalf of the trust. So we put an example in here of how you should sign on behalf of the trust. And then down here, we put the formal name of the trust. So whenever you're opening up a new bank account or buying another piece of property and you're wondering, Dave told me to put this in my trust, but I forget the name of my trust, what I should put on the account. Well, the name is here for you to quickly reference and look at, and it's easy to find. So that page is in there for you, okay? This is another page that is different than the Morris Hall documents. So these next 2 pages were not and are not in your Morris Hall binder. These are new pages that I've added to our new binder here. This page and this next page here summarize all of the key players inside your binder, such as who is my healthcare power of attorney, who is the backup, who is my mental health care power of attorney, who is the backup, who is my personal representative I've listed on my will, who's the backup, who's my financial power of attorney, who's my trustee, who's my backup trustee, the kids dates of birth. That's all summarized in these 2 pages here, and that is new. That won't be in any of your binders if you have an old Morris Hall binder. This page is a little flow chart. This should be in every one of your binders, whether it's Morris Hall or mine. I kept this. It's a great summary, visual summary of your trust and how your trust works. And it just kind of goes through and it shows you that there's 3 different time periods during the lifetime of the trust. Period number 1 is while you're both alive. While you're both alive, if you're married, you are the trustors, the trustees, the beneficiaries of your trust. You control it, you access it, you spend it, you use it, you do whatever you want to do with the trust. Period number 2, if you're married, would be when one spouse dies. And that's where the trust will do one of 2 different things. The trust will either divide into 2 new trusts, and that's what it's showing you here, A and B, 2 new trusts, or it will stay in one trust, depending on how it was drafted. Now, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20 years ago, we drafted most of your trust to do an automatic division. You had to divide the trust when one spouse died, and that's how it was drafted. And the reason why it was drafted that way is because we were trying to minimize something called a federal estate tax when the second spouse died. You may not need that anymore. And the reason why is because the federal estate tax exemption amount is really, really, really high right now. It's $11.7 million per person. And even with the Build Back Better Act, I think is what they're calling it, that's trying to make its way through Congress right now, if that does pass, or some iteration of it does pass, the exemption amount will probably drop to a $6 million exemption index for inflation, which still means if we're married, we have over $12 million indexed for inflation before we owe $1 of federal estate tax. So if our estate size is $2, $3, $4 million, and we don't expect to get a huge inheritance, we don't play the lottery, right? We don't think our estate's going to exceed $12 million if we're married, $6 million if we're single. Then we may want to change the trust to say that, hey, when one spouse dies, we don't want it to split into two new trusts anymore. We want to keep it all in one trust. And that would require us to revise your trust and look at it and see if we need to change that. But then in period number 3, that's when both spouses have died, then everything gets flushed out to our beneficiaries down here. And that's just a little flow chart that shows you how the trust works. The next tab you're going to find in your book is called your living trust tab. So this is where your trust is found. This whole section inside your book is your trust. The main purpose for your trust is to keep us from going through something called probate. That is the #1 reason why you created your trust. Now, your trust does a lot of other really cool things as long as you set it up right. It can help mitigate taxes. It can help protect the inheritance for your beneficiaries from divorces and creditors and lawsuits for your beneficiaries. But the main purpose for the trust is to avoid probate. And it does that by owning the asset. So it's very, very, very important. That's why we put this big, important reminder bolded in gray down here at the bottom saying, hey, you gotta fund the assets into the trust. The only way the trust will avoid probate is if it owns the assets. So you gotta do a good job of putting all the stuff into the trust. That's called funding the trust. And it has that reminder right in the front for you to always remind you got to do that. And then as you go through the trust, it just talks about how the trust works. Who are the trustees? Who are the beneficiaries? What rights and powers does a trustee have? What happens when I die? What happens if I become incapacitated with the assets? What happens if everybody's dead and I don't have anybody left? Who's the ultimate beneficiary? So those are all things that are contained inside your trust document. So that's your trust. Okay. You thought I was going to go through every page of that, didn't you? You guys are all getting worried there for a little bit. I'm going to spare you that. Your next tab is your trust assets tab. Okay. In your Morris Hall binder, I believe we called it your trust property tab. It's the same thing. It's just, I like the term trust assets, so I changed it. So that is the next tab. Behind the trust assets tab, you are going to see a reference to 3 schedules. Okay, you're going to see a Schedule A. You will see if it's a married. If it's single, you'll just have Schedule A. If it's a married trust, you'll see Schedule A. You'll see a Schedule B, and you'll see a Schedule C. Once again, if you're single, 1 schedule. If you're married, there's 3 schedules. So what are these in here for? What do you do with them? What's the purpose? These schedules are in here to give a summary of all of your assets that you own when you die. So you have to keep these updated. These are homework sheets. These would have a sticky note at the top of them, indicating you can write on these, mark on these. And you should mark on them, write on them. Because the sole purpose for these schedules is so that when you either die or become incapacitated, all that your successor trustees should have to do to figure out what assets you own so they can get in control of those things is flip behind your trust assets tab, and they should have a quick, easy summary of everything you own. So if we drafted this document for you 20 years ago and you have not updated it in the last 20 years, and your assets have changed in the last 20 years, 20 years ago, I banked at Bank One, and now I bank at Wells Fargo or Chase. I would want to update my schedule to reflect that. Otherwise, what happens when you die is the trustee comes in and sees me and I say, okay, trustee, #1 is you got to figure out what the assets are so we can get you in control of those assets. And the trustee looks at me 9 times out of 10 like a deer in headlights, and their eyes are like this big, and they say, Dave, I have no clue where they bank. I don't know where their investment accounts are. I don't know who their financial advisor is. I don't know any of that stuff. Well, now you just caused a mess, right? So make it easy. List all your assets behind your trust assets tab. Keep it updated. Maybe mark it on your calendar. Trust review day, January 10th of every year. And you sit down, you have a ceremony, maybe make yourself a nice steak to congratulate yourself for doing it. but go through your trust, make sure everything is updated, make sure that you have all your current asset information listed in the binder, so it makes it a lot easier for your trustee after you're gone. Hope that makes sense. Now, why do you have 3 schedules if you're married? Well, because Schedule A is for community property. There's 3 different types of assets that could be funded into a joint married trust. Community property, his separate, and her separate. Community, his, hers. Those are the 3 types of assets that could be put into a joint married trust. Now, most of you, 99% of you, your assets, if you're married, are all community assets, right? There are a handful of you that have separate property, right? So let's say that my mom dies, and on her deathbed, she says, Dave, I know you're married to Kimber, but when you die, Dave, I don't want $1 of this money that your dad and I worked for to go to Kimber. I want it to go to your children, my grandchildren. This is my mother speaking. And I promised my mom on her deathbed, Mom, whatever you leave me as an inheritance, I will put into a separate account that Kimber has no rights or access to. And when I die, I promise that will go to my children, your grandchildren. Well, that would be separate property of mine. Therefore, I would list that on my separate schedule, Schedule B. That's my separate property. And I would put on there, Chase Bank, account number 12345, separate property inherited from my mother. And then the trust document, going back to the trust, would have a provision in it that says, upon my death, account number 12345 at Chase is to go to my children, not to my wife, Kimber. So that's the reason why you have the different schedules inside the binder. Community is hers, and you should keep those updated. The next tab is your property agreement. So you have a tab. This is if you're married, you'll have a property agreement tab. The property agreement tab simply just says, hey, everything that we own, if we're married, is community property. If you're single, you don't have a property agreement tab. There is no such thing as community property if you're single. There's only community property if we're married. But if you're married, there's a property agreement tab that's an agreement that you and your spouse sign that just says, hey, we both agree that everything we own is community property. We own it all together. It's ours. It's basically the antithesis of a prenuptial agreement. You're all familiar with the prenup. A prenup says this is hers, this is mine. We keep everything separate. If everything you have is community property, then the property agreement states as much. If you do have separate property, some separate, some community, then the property agreement will reflect that. It will say, these assets are hers, these assets are his, and these assets are ours. And that's outlined in the property agreement. So that's what that is. The next tab you're going to come to is your pour over will. I get a lot of questions about this. And what is a pour over will? What does it do? It doesn't mean that when I die, if the asset's not in my trust, the pour over will automatically just pours it into my trust. Is that what it means? Kind of. So your pour over will is a safety net, right? It's there to catch assets that you forgot to put into the name of your trust while you're alive. But here's the but. If we're using the pour over will to grab a hold of that asset that you forgot to put into the trust while you're alive, then we have to go through probate. We probate your will, your pour over will. We go through probate, and after probate, then the asset slides or pours into your trust to be distributed according to the terms of the trust. So we never, ever, ever want to be using your pour over will. It means 2 things have happened that are bad. Number 1 is you've died. That's not good. Number 2 is you've left an asset outside the trust that exceeded the probate threshold amount. What is that amount? $75,000 in Arizona. Every state's different. And now we have to probate your will to gain control of that asset. So it's best just to put all of your stuff in your trust while you're alive. There are certain things that you can keep outside your trust, realizing that the probate threshold amount is $75,000. So, you know, if I want to keep my 2009 Honda Accord out of my trust because it's only worth $5,000, go ahead and do that. It's under 75,000. You're not going to be hurt by having that outside your trust. But the majority of our assets should be in the name of our trust, and then we're never using our pour over will, but it is in here in case we have to use it when you're dead. Hope that makes sense. That's your pour over will. Next, you're going to have a tab that says funding instructions. Okay, this is very, very useful to you because you often forget how you should be putting assets in the trust, right? I get emails almost weekly about this. You know, Dave, I went through and reviewed my assets, and I found a life insurance policy, and I forget how you told me to put that in my trust. Should it be the owner? Should it be the beneficiary? Should my spouse be the beneficiary? I forget what you said. I'm happy to email you. I'm happy to answer the question. So don't ever hesitate to call or email. But believe it or not, the answer is in your binder. It's found behind your funding instructions tab. So if you flip behind your funding instructions tab, you have all of your answers in these pages here. A bunch of pages that kind of go through and tell you how you should be transferring assets into your trust. You know, who should be the beneficiary of my life insurance? Who should be the beneficiary of my IRA? How should my home be titled? Instructions there that tell you all that. So it is in your binder, but happy to answer questions if you want to email me. All right, we're halfway through. Everybody still awake? Paying attention? No one's asleep yet? Next tab, certificate of trust. This is a summary of your trust, okay? It is probably the document you're going to use the most in your entire binder initially, if you're creating a trust for the first time, because this is the legal document that all of the financial advisors, banks, everybody wants to see so that you can retitle your asset out of your name into the trust name. This summarizes your trust for everybody. So instead of giving your bank, your financial advisor, all those other people where you need to get the asset put into the trust, your entire trust document. Remember, your trust document is not small by any means. It's this whole thing, right? We don't want to give all that to a financial advisor or a bank. They don't need it all, to be completely honest with you. Instead, we give them a summary of the trust, which is called a certificate of trust, okay? And it's 2 pages long. We often put copies of the certificate in your binder for you, stapled together. Lisa does a great job of doing that for all of us. And that is what you would give to your bank or financial institution. It summarizes, see how much smaller that is than your trust? A lot. That's what you would give to your bank or financial institution whenever they ask for a copy of the trust. Now, a lot of you may be saying, Dave, I tried to do that, and Chase said, sorry, we need a copy of the whole trust document. Why do you have a certificate if they still have to have the whole trust document? Great question. It's because banks are idiots. That's the truth. So hope nobody on the call today is a banker. Hope I've not offended anybody, but it's because they don't understand that a certificate will suffice. In your certificate, there is actually a clause in here that says, hey, financial institution, if you require or request more than just my certification of trust to validate that I have a trust, you can be held liable for damages. Under Arizona law, all that they can require from you is your certificate of trust. Now, does that mean that they're going to give in? No. So at that point, you have 2 options. You either acquiesce and you give them a copy of your full trust document, or you move your money to another institution that will accept your certificate, and that's all that they'll need. There are institutions out there that will just accept your certificate. They don't require the full trust. They're few and far between. Most institutions, even though the law says all you need is your certificate, they'll still want the full trust document. Don't ask me. Trying to fight them is impossible. So just understand that. Your next tab is your life insurance tab. Some of you have life insurance, a lot of you don't. If you do have life insurance, then all you're doing behind this tab is homework. So I would have put a sticky note on this. This was something you would have written on or marked on. And it's just a homework sheet. It looks like this. It allows you to go through and list all of your life insurance policies, who the beneficiaries are, the value of the policy, all of the information on your policy. If you don't want to handwrite all this stuff in here, the other thing you could do is just make a copy of your policy. 3-hole punch it, stick it in here behind the life insurance tab. All we want Johnny or Susie, your kids, to have to find is this binder. They shouldn't be doing a scavenger hunt around the house trying to figure out, well, where's the deed to the house? Where's the life insurance policy? Where's this? It should all be in this binder, or the binder should tell us where to find those things, which is our next tab, location list tab. This is also homework. Okay? Behind the location list tab, you have a little chart that you should fill out. Looks like this. Okay. And so this also would have had a little sticky note at the top of it. And what you do is you fill this out. What it allows you to do is it's going to say here, hey, my estate planning binder, which is this first little box here, is kept in the fireproof safe under the bed. Combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you write there where you keep the binder. Now, I know what you're all saying. Dave, this doesn't make any sense to me. You're telling me to write on this page where I keep my binder, and then the page is in the binder and the binder is hidden. How does that help at all? You're right. You're right. You're right. That doesn't make any sense. So what you need to do is after you fill this out, you make a copy of this, the filled out one, and you give it to your successor trustee. So now they know, oh, I remember mom and dad or Aunt Jane, whoever you are to the trustee, gave me a little form that showed me where to find everything. And now I just need to look under the bed and I'll find the fireproof safe, and then the combo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now I can access their binder. That's how that works. We also put a location number 1, the next box. Maybe location 1 is where I keep my tax returns or my bank statements or my important legal documents like my passport, stuff like that. So you have these places in here where you can keep that. My estate planning portfolio has all these legal documents. Location 1 is where I keep my tax returns and bank statements. Check, 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 check. Location number 2 is in the blue filing cabinet in the office. What will they find there? Oh, personal information. Check, 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 check. So fill that out, give a copy to your trustee so they have it. The other recommendation is don't write on the master of these. I would make extra copies of the master before I write on them, because you'll change the location of things over time, right? So 5 years ago, you kept your tax returns in the white filing cabinet in the office, and now it's in the blue filing cabinet downstairs. So you'll want another form to fill out. So make copies of the page before you write on it. Hope that makes sense. Next, you have your key advisors sheet to be filled out, right? Another homework page. So this should be filled out for your trustee. Our law firm's information is already in here. If you'll all do me a big, big favor, if you don't take any other notes today, maybe make a note and say, hey, I need to go into my binder and change, because this, I'm not sure if you can see, it's kind of blurry, but here it has attorney. That's what this says right there, attorney. And then it has the law firm's information that needs to be contacted if you die or become incapacitated. Well, if your trust is the old Morris Hall document, guess whose name is there? It's going to say Morris Hall and Morris Hall's address and phone number. We don't want that anymore. We want it to be David Eastman, Eastman Estate Planning, my phone number, my contact here, so that if something does happen to you, your trustee knows, oh, I got to contact Dave. He's the attorney. Here's his contact information, and they'll reach out to me. But it also has like your financial advisor, your CPA, your insurance agents, your funeral director, clergy, all the important people are going to have to be contacted if something should happen to you. You should fill this information out. Next, you have friends and family members that should be contacted if something happens to you. So you should fill this information out as well. Why? Well, because if your best friend, Bob, who lives in Minnesota, you'd want him to be invited to the funeral service if something happened to you. Well, does your daughter, Jane, know about your best friend, Bob, or how to get in touch with Bob? Probably not. This makes it easy for them. They know here how to get in touch with whoever. So that's what that is. Your next tab is called your property power of attorney. Another word for this is financial power of attorney or durable financial power of attorney. It's all the same thing. What does this document do? How does it work? Why do we have it? So your financial power of attorney, which is this document here, a lot of confusion arises with this document. I get phone calls at least once a month saying, Dave, my parents need a power of attorney. Well, A, they have one, it's in your binder. But B, do they really do you really need to use the power of attorney? The only time we use a power of attorney, only time, you're alive, you have to be alive for the power of attorney to work. If you're dead, the power of attorney ceases to work. You cannot use a power of attorney once death occurs. Okay, so you have to be alive. You are incapacitated, dementia, Alzheimer's, or something like that. And the asset is not in the trust, or it's a non-asset. Okay, so what do I mean by those last two things? I think it's easy to understand what I mean by have to be alive. I think it's easy to understand what it means to be incapacitated. So what does it mean that the asset is not in the trust, or it's a non-asset? If the asset is in the trust, let's say I have a brokerage account at Edward Jones and it's got $1 million in it, and I become incapacitated, and my daughter is listed as my power of attorney and as the trustee of my trust. Does my daughter need a power of attorney to gain control of the $1 million Edward Jones account? No, she needs the trust document because the trust owns the account. A power of attorney has no control over a trust asset. So it has to be outside of the trust for a power of attorney to control. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a checking account that's not in my trust. It's just in Dave Eastman's name. And I'm alive, I have dementia, and my daughter wants to access my checking account at Wells Fargo to write checks, pay bills. Which document would she use? The trust or the power of attorney? She would use the power of attorney because the asset is not in the trust. Hope that makes sense. The other one would be if it's a non-asset. What's a non-asset? Well, let's say she's dealing with a bill, right? Let's say she needs to contact my mortgage holder and ask them a question. That's not an asset, right? Or let's say Cox Cable is billing me for crazy amounts every single month, and she wants to know, why is Cox Cable billing me so much money every month? She can't use the trust to figure that out because it's not an asset. Trust only allows her control of trust assets. So she would use a power of attorney for that. It's a non-asset. And she can call Cox. They'll say, who are you? She'll say, I'm the power of attorney. They'll say, send us the power of attorney. She'll send them the power of attorney. And then Cox Cable will talk to her because she is the power of attorney. So that's what a power of attorney does, what a power of attorney doesn't do. More likely than not, most of the time, everything's in the trust. Therefore, it's the trust document we need, not the power of attorney. But you have it, okay? Last legal documents inside your binder are your healthcare documents, okay? Behind the healthcare documents tab, you're gonna find behind here, there's 4 healthcare documents everybody should have. If you don't have these in your binder, it means your binder is not up to date and you need to get it cleaned up and up to date. The 4 healthcare documents you're gonna find behind this tab: healthcare power of attorney, mental health care power of attorney, living will, and HIPAA. Healthcare, mental health care, HIPAA, living will. Okay, those are your 4. Every binder should have them. If you're looking through your binder and you see, oh, I only have 3 of the 4. I only have healthcare, living will, and HIPAA. I don't have this mental health care that Dave talked about. You need to come in and we gotta clean some stuff up and create that. Okay. So you should have those 4 healthcare documents behind the healthcare documents tab, every one of you, okay? So that's what you'll find behind there. Also behind here, you'll find the original signed document, and then you'll find copies of the document. So we make extra copies of your healthcare documents. We staple them in a packet together. So all 4 of those documents we staple in a packet for you. So anytime you go into the hospital or doctor's office for a medical procedure or something like that, you want to take that packet, not the originals, but take the packet, copy of the packet with you to the hospital doctor, and you give it to them. Because every time you go to the hospital, the question they always ask, as you all know, is, do you have a healthcare power of attorney? Do you have a living will? And you can say, yep, I have it. Here it is. And you'll give them the copy. That's your healthcare documents tab. Behind the other documents tab, getting here to the end, so we're almost done here. Behind the other documents tab, you're going to find good articles that we highly recommend you review and look at. Behind this tab, you're going to find articles like, what happens if I become incapacitated? How do I pay for long-term care? How do I apply for All-Tex? What are the steps that have to be taken when I die by my successor trustee? All good information to just review and look at, just some good articles to read. And it's a good cure for insomnia. If you can't fall asleep one night, start one of those, you'll be out in no time. Then your last tab in your book is called your legacy plan, okay? Behind the legacy plan, there's a few more pieces of homework behind here that none of you ever do. So I don't know why I'm telling you this, but in all the years of doing estate planning, I don't think I've ever seen any client that's done all of these things. So maybe you'll surprise me by coming in for a review here in the next little bit, and you'll shock me and it'll be done. But what's in here? Number one is writing a letter to your loved ones. Right? It's a final goodbye letter. Your kids are going to care less if you have kids, or maybe you don't have kids and it's all your nieces and nephews or whoever, but they're going to care less about what's in this entire binder, right? It's big, it's thick, there's lots of legalese in there. They could care less about all that. What they're going to care about is what your thoughts, your wishes, your dreams, your hopes, whatever. That's what they're going to read over and over and over again. They're going to keep it in their book of remembrance to remember you by. So if you're, do it. Most people don't do it. I don't think I've ever seen a client do it, but still going to advocate that you do it because I think it's a good idea. Next in here, what you're going to find is this little exhibit. This is for your personal property. So how do we distribute your jewelry, your artwork, your furniture, your coin collection, your stamp collection, the Van Gogh painting on your wall, the grandfather clock that came over from the old country and it's been over here, and I've got 4 kids. Which of the kids gets it, right? So that is where you list that information here. Describe the item, who gets the item in here. The next piece of homework is going to be your funeral arrangements. All right, so what flowers do you want? What hymns do you want? Who do you want speaking at the service? What kind of scriptures do you want? Those kinds of things. Over here is your remembrance service, right? How do we remember you by? What awards were you given? What clubs did you belong to? What were you passionate about in life? Who would you want to be contacted, notifying that you've passed away? Good information to fill out for your kids and loved ones to have all that there. Next, you're going to have something called a digital asset registry. You may or may not have any of these things. Today, we do a lot of things digitally. We have email accounts, and Facebook accounts, and Twitter accounts, and online banking accounts, and iCloud accounts with our music and our pictures, and all those things are in a cloud now. And to access that information, we need the website, username, and password for that information so we can gain control of those things. The last thing in your book is called My Legacy. It's just about family history. You can certainly go through and just fill out the information on mom and dad, what it was like growing up, those kinds of things. Kids oftentimes like to read through that, so you can fill that out. So that is each of your binders in a nutshell. Questions? Don't see anybody putting any questions in. So that tells me that I did a fantastic job of explaining to all of you your binder and how it works and what's inside of it and the layout of it. Last couple of things just to kind of go through with you if there's no questions is how often should we review the binder? How often should we update it? You know, what requires an update? The easiest answer is every 3 years you should be having your estate plan review. Okay. So if you want to come in more often, that's fine. Certainly if your estate is more complex, right, then you probably want to come in more often than every 3 years. But at least every 3 years is a review. That doesn't mean we have to change things. It doesn't mean we have to amend things or alter things. It just means it's a good time to review things and see how things are working. Other than that, just make sure that when you acquire assets, you're always titling the assets in the name of the trust and then keeping everything up to date, right? make that day on your calendar the trust review day, because we change our advisors, right? Today, my CPA is Joe Jones. And then next year I decide I don't like Joe anymore, or he's died or he's retired. Now my CPA is Bob Smith. Well, you're going to want to update the information inside your binder so it doesn't cause confusion for your loved ones after you're gone. So keep it up to date. Let everyone know where to find it. Have it reviewed every 3 years. And that is everything. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. Hopefully that helped explain what was in the binder, how it works. We're now going to do a drawing for a gift basket. Hopefully, I'm sure some of you have seen the gift baskets that we've handed out, and so you are familiar with those. I'm going to close my eyes so you don't think I'm cheating here. And there is a bunch of names in there, just so you know I'm not cheating here. And I'm going to pull a name. Samantha Van Zillen. So Samantha, congratulations. And what we're going to do is we're going to have Elisa reach out to you, and she'll find a way or a time that you can come in and pick it up, or we'll find another way that we can get the gift basket to you. But congratulations, those are great gift baskets. Everybody that has received those in the past have raved about them and enjoyed them. So congratulations to you. Next month, we're going to do, are we doing one in November? Everyone's scheduled. So we'll do one in November. Not sure about December because of the holiday and how crazy it is. Maybe we'll just do a quick one, and I'll wear a Christmas hat or a Santa hat, and I'll wish everybody Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. But anyway, thanks again for attending. Appreciate all of you. If there's questions or concerns, you know how to reach us, email, phone call. But we'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.